Welcome back to Trending in Education. Brandon Jones, Michael Palmer, and myself, Dan Strafford. And on this week's episode, we turn towards the holiday gift-giving season. It's time to talk about the best educational and learning toys available for kids and for lifelong learners. We did this episode last year. Happy to come back to it. And happy to welcome in Brandon and Mike. Brandon, how's your world? What's new? And how's it going?
Well, I'm about to be poorer since it's the holiday season and I have a kid. So, I guess it's just a slow burn that happens most of my life. I often get your order from Amazon.com has shipped. The orders that I certainly myself never placed.
Right.
So there's an elf on some shelf in my house that is continuing to order things from Amazon. But it's a nice time of the year. It's the holidays. We're getting Thanksgiving coming up soon. Personally, my favorite holiday.
I think you may have mentioned that before.
I have. Yeah. It's a secular holiday, which it's my kind of style, and it's centered around food.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of holidays are centered around food ultimately, but
is it Abe Lincoln's holiday? Did he? We'll do some research in real time, but I think that's
like
right. He may have. I'll Google it for you, Dan.
The first Thanksgiving was served out of a 10-gallon hat. Little known fact. It's Turkey Day, and then heading into a whole host of holidays over the later part of December into January, and I think it's just a nice time of year.
Nice.
And to confirm, yes, Abe Lincoln, through a series of editorials, did start Thanksgiving during the Civil War.
There was even a proclamation, but Thanksgiving may have predated him.
It's the Thanksgiving Proclamation.
But he made it a thing. It was like, yo, people, it's the fourth Thursday? Is it the fourth Thursday? I believe that's correct.
Mike, your world? Anything new? Anything exciting?
I'm calculating how Thanksgiving is.
Your world is full of math.
It's figured out. I think it's 21 plus the first Thursday of the year, which makes it the fourth Thursday. I feel confident. That's my final answer. I'm going to say Abe Lincoln proclaimed Thanksgiving, and that's part of his proclamation. Darn it. It's a nice holiday.
Yes.
It's family. It's football. It's secular. Football, granted, it's a bit of a who knows how to feel about football.
Football's a religion for some.
But it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing. And then you get the it's also a 4-day weekend.
It sure is.
I believe as Americans, it's the only 4-day weekend that's officially built into our work year.
Right. It's the 152nd.
That's a thing. I like that thing. And then in terms of me, I like holidays. The one thing you said, Dan, was learning toys. I think we're talking about learning gifts.
Correct.
If it's a toy for an adult, like a toys, I think you get extra points for toys for lifelong learners. Because, I feel like we could all use, I don't know, Brandon, what's the last time you got a toy for, keep it clean, what's the last time you got a toy for Christmas? Or for the holiday season, or for your birthday? It's all good. We'll clean it up in post. Just roll with it.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, right?
Let's just say it's been a while.
Been a while. Toys for adults, maybe. I don't know, Dan. Where are you going to take us from here?
I'm going to take us down the path of talking about educational learning toys. Brandon made the point of being a little bit poorer. My kids, Brandon, I don't know if you are a cable subscriber, and I asked that because the commercials have started up.
Yes, although I watch very little cable TV live. So I watch very few commercials. I think the only thing I watch live is really sports, not Israeli sports, to be clear. It's hard to watch that live because time zone.
And just be clear, you don't have a problem with Israeli sports.
No, of course not.
But you just don't seek it out.
Right. It is really sports. And Penny is that's my daughter.
Yes.
Again, shout out Penny. Is a she's only so-so sports watcher.
Right.
She always asks me which team is the good team and which team is the bad team.
Right. Which is Cleveland folled by Boston, typically?
It's usually based on the colors of the team. Like if I've got a
sure.
betting interest, if that were legal, or a rooting interest.
All those things.
Yeah, and she will watch half-heartedly and like half quarterly.
Yes.
So
yes.
she gets like 8 minutes of begrudging watching, and then she's off to play with a toy, an educational toy in some cases. Yeah.
More and more we're getting the breaks in between shows, even on the likes of Hulu and Amazon, where they have the commercials and the kids, my 8, 5, and the 15-month, not quite yet, but I want that. I need that. I want that. I need that to every single thing that comes on screen. So it is that time of year, and we want to talk about some learning gifts here, as Mike astutely pointed out, not just toys, but going to talk through, let's go kids first and then make our way to lifelong learners. There are a few articles that we're basing some of this discussion around. Business Insider has a sort of top 10 gifts for educational toys. And Brandon, I don't know if you saw, Magna-Tiles, which we discussed last year at length, has made a return this.
We sure did. I think, I give us credit for that. I've talked to a number of parents who listened to our show last year and then went out and bought Magna-Tiles for their children.
Yeah.
And so on Magna-Tiles, I think we need like a little piece of that action.
Right. They're like the Army undies. Like they're like MeUndies.
Not to be clear, not Army undies.
Oh my God, the Israeli sports. And
it's
Army
all
undies.
There's all this elision here that's happening.
Yes, but just to be clear, Magna-Tiles, a toy designed for the kids predominantly.
Yes.
Although maybe an adult if he or she would care to
play Magna-Tiles. I think that's the right verb.
Yes.
I construct with Magna-Tiles with Penny, and it is fun. Like it's I'm going to talk about Barbies later on. Spoiler alert. I'm going to talk about Barbies.
That's a tease.
Yep. But if I'm choosing, which I rarely get to do, what activity I get to do with my child, because like the whole your child is like is going to be a sponge learning. No, the child does what it wants and like sometimes brings you along.
Well, it's why like baby CEO, baby president is kind of right. Because like the baby is running the show
for sure.
Yeah.
But if I'm choosing what to do, Magna-Tiles would be towards the top of my list because you're building things and then you're deconstructing things, which is the most fun for everyone involved.
Yeah.
That to me is pretty good. But it is the best educational toy overall from the Business Insider article that we'll share.
Yeah.
Good job by you, Magna-Tiles.
Yes. And I'm looking at the write-up here on the top 100 toys. It's the original award-winning magnetic building tiles, creativity and educational, STEM approved.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's got a lot of the words that we use on this podcast.
And interestingly, as the non-parent in the pod, the idea of gamifying Magna-Tiles, are there games built into Magna-Tiles, or is it more build it and make the games up, or do they provide some suggestions? Like, because to me, immediately as an adult who doesn't mind an adult game every now and then, every often, absolutely, is that it's like Jenga, right? Couldn't you Jengify Magna-Tiles? Is that a thing that could happen? I'm just riffing here. And then Dan, please clean it up in post or straighten me out if I'm acting out too much here.
I don't know that it's marketed that way as something that can be played with and gamified, but there are specific designs they give you to build out and to construct, and then you can build add-ons. But I think to your point, being its magnets, my daughters and I may have stumbled upon that without thinking of it as Jenga, where we would take out, a middle tile from the entire set to see if it falls, and then take another, leverage point out and maybe another piece, and then see when it finally falls. The game we play is build it as tall as we can and then knock it down with running through them. Is typically the game we play with them.
Yeah, it's so good.
Similar?
It's very similar. I think that's like every child and parent's joy there is build it up. And then, like, especially, what's really the alternative to breaking it down by running through it?
Right.
Carefully taking it apart piece by piece.
Well, it's like a house of cards, if you will.
Right.
Like when you build a house of cards, it's the same concept of Jenga. I think it's potential energy, right?
Yeah.
Like you're building a lot of that potential energy.
That's right.
Eventually, it's all gonna be dissipated back out into the world when you bust it open, and that's part of the joy. As the famous Russian philosopher Bakunin, I forget his first name, said, the urge to destroy is also a creative urge. So I always thought that was Nietzsche.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
It's actually Bakunin.
You fact checked yourself.
I fact checked myself before I wrecked myself. But we've been wrecking some imaginary Magna-Tiles.
Yeah.
Mike, for you, what stands out? What on this list is a top performer or something that you are maybe looking to purchase for Mike has made mention the future addition to his family, or for a nephew, a niece, or a kid in your life? What's one that piqued your interest and you think could be a runaway hit this holiday season?
I don't recall specifically mentioning that, but yes, I've implied that I may become a parent at some point, which is true.
That's great.
Yeah, it's good to potentially become parents. It's what happens in life. But I like the Sphero, right? So Sphero, for those of you longtime listener, call it. Why don't you call us more often? We've been talking about Sphero for a couple of years now. So Sphero is we were actually on Sphero probably a year before we were even on Magna-Tiles, where we were talking about Sphero, which is a programmable ball. So like you basically can use pseudocode, like programming, to get an app-controlled ball to move around. And I do see, I think it's the Wonder Workshop Dash coding robot for kids 6+, voice activated, navigates objects. It's got all sorts of greatness. But it's like the idea of like what used to be like me back in the day with like a pink Spalding ball walking over to the schoolyard and then throwing the ball against the wall. Like that was known as like ball against the wall.
Yeah.
It was $1.99 for like for a little pink ball. You'd walk over and you'd throw it against the wall and you'd bounce it off the wall, and then you'd have to make up the games to play with that ball. But like, hey, you got a ball, you got a wall, you got the ground, it bounces. Make some stuff up. Get some scoring algorithms. Suddenly your ball becomes a game. But it wasn't a robot.
No.
And nowadays, your ball can become a robot, and you can learn how to program while playing with your ball. That's kind of cool, right?
It's pretty good.
It's like the world has changed, and I think we'll talk more in a subsequent show about how maybe some of that change is a little bit dangerous. Where like at the end of the day, like you give a kid a ball to play with and just go out and have some fun. That's a good exercise.
Yeah, that's one of the, and I think we can tease into our next show maybe at the end of the show, but because I have a parent point of view to offer on that. But two of the things that I thought, we can get back to the specific gifts, but
yes.
Two things that I thought were interesting in doing prep for this episode. One is that there is a section on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And I'd be interested to find out when this actually first came about. There's a section on Amazon called STEM toys, right? So, to your point, Mike, the world has changed, and now we're specifically thinking about what kind of toys, in the phrase STEM toys, we can give to our kids to help encourage science, technology, engineering, and math. I think that is an interesting citation. And on the other hand, on a lot of these top lists, those lists included, and towards the top of the list, books.
Yes.
Specific books they're calling out that are particularly educationally relevant, and a soccer ball. I mean, speaking of your, pink ball, the wall ball game, I think that there is a lot that's changed, but a lot that hasn't changed. Like if you want to give a kid something that will help make them either smarter or more curious about her or his world, a book is a really good choice. It's been a good choice for like 1,000 years.
Yes.
I mean, since...
even pre-Gutenberg.
700 years.
Pre-Gutenberg, it was a fantastic gift. It was my God, how did you get me a book? Right. These are only available in the library.
Who are you? Are you the Pharaoh?
You hired
I don't know.
a scribe.
Right.
Like, thank you. You really shouldn't have.
In fact, actually, just to riff on this for 1 second, one could argue that the book has become an increasingly pedestrian gift. Like,
yes.
the longer ago in history,
yes.
the more amazing a book was.
Correct.
But that's being said, despite its slow decline
right.
in terms of how awesome that present is, it's still like among the best gifts that you can give. I think anyone. We'll talk about lifelong learners in a little bit.
Yes.
It's the number one thing on the list, on the article that we'll post
yes.
For lifelong learners is give that man or woman, give that anybody a book.
Yes.
I think that's great. And
Yeah.
the ball is the same thing. So
Yeah.
while on one hand so much change,
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand so little has changed.
Right.
And so maybe a message I'll close this little part of my soapboxing with is you actually don't have to try too hard.
Right.
Like, to give something that's going to make a kid have a great educational experience, it's like a little bit of your time.
Right.
And something that you might think would do it, like a
Right.
book or a ball.
Right. Don't overthink it.
You don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, and you're welcome to.
You're welcome to, but you don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
And the interestingly, like related question or idea about gifts is like another trend is the of the month club. You know, so like you get a subscription, even Audible, arguably, which I think is a great, this isn't even a spoiler alert. I'm just jumping around. But like a gift for a lifelong learner, like if you know somebody who doesn't listen to books, who maybe would like to, like an Audible subscription is actually great, I think, in that context. And then like a Ball of the Month club, if such a thing existed, would be like that's not a bad gift because like there's an increasing move towards online to offline. Amazon is the new Santa Claus, and like why just load up my gift lobby in December when I can actually get a new gift every month? There's a ton of those that are emerging, and they're really great. And I've even heard about gifts that are developmentally appropriate for your baby. So like when you're at 3 months, that's when you need a rattle. And don't give a 1 month old baby a rattle because they're gonna be like, well, they're not gonna be like this, but they're not gonna respond to the fact that you're giving them something that they're not ready for just yet.
I think one of them is the Learning Box series for kids.
Yeah.
That is exactly that, where you get a different shipment each month, and they do the task, and then they send it back, and they get a new one when they send it back as completed. So it's also trying to get them to that final stage, not just getting a new gift every month.
Can I just jump in really for a moment here, Dan, too? And just to be clear, this show is we work at Kaplan.
Yes.
We don't currently have any sponsors for the show. It's just
Correct.
the good graces of our employers who allow us to put the show out.
True
every
that.
week. If any organizations or folks who might want us to talk about educational gaming,
We're easy.
Hit us up. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like we're looking for any justification to do this show. These recommendations and endorsements, by and large, are just based on our own research, as much as we've done it. None of these there's no thumb on the scale for any particular recommendations that we're making. But yeah, hit us up if you are interested in talking to us, because that is a whole nother realm where like today's broadcast was brought to you by your friends at Magna-Tiles.
Right.
Magna-Tiles.
Yeah.
Jenga for babies. Yeah. I'm sorry, I just wanted to get that in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Listening to a lot of sports radio, you get those cold reads out of nowhere where they try to make it sound like they bought a new car every month, it seems like. But nonetheless, we can continue on here talking about gifts. One I'm giving or hoping to give is a coding gift for my eldest. She's not home as we record, so I can talk about it openly. Is a Kano Wand. The company is Kano, and it's a wand in the style of Harry Potter. So the idea is you build the wand, then you code the wand, and you interact with an iPad or Kindle or another interactive tablet of some sort. And I think, Mike, you were talking about it before. The books are great. I agree, and we give her a lot of books. But we are seeing a lot of robots, a lot of coding, a lot of STEM in this discussion. I'm great with it. I would love for her to learn these things. How do you see things like that, the idea of focusing solely on robotics, STEM, and the gifting in that way coming to grow even more this year in 2018?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting when you talk about gifts for kids and what it really signals about what our culture thinks about the future of work and the future of education, because I think those two things generally go hand in hand. I do think increasingly, and I frequently credit Minecraft with this, but there's probably other examples, but I think increasingly the idea that you can learn while gaming or learn while playing and that learning will inform your ability to understand like conditional logic, like if-then statements, which is a big part of programming, and also the idea of providing kids and even adults more like open platforms as toys so that they can sort of explore it. Legos, I think, are probably the best example of an open platform. Magna-Tiles are kind of a riff on Legos. And then in essence, like Minecraft is kind of a digital riff on Legos. I think that's really interesting. So like when are you giving someone a platform as a gift? Erector sets and like chemistry sets way back in the day were the similar STEM gift. But like I think it is interesting like what it signals. Like we're not really saying that we think there are going to be a lot of chemists in the future. We're saying that we think there'll be a lot of people in robotics and coding and sort of engineering. I think there's a lot to kind of to key in on there, and I think a lot of it also relates to like the counter movement, which we were in some ways we're talking about, where like giving an analog gift, and like as cliche as it is, like giving the gift of your time, like is also a real thing. Like the idea of being physically present with someone and not distracted by screens is also a gift, and we talked about that last year too, like the gift of like teaching someone and then even being available to someone else as someone who wants to learn, like wanting to learn from someone who's later on in their life, and just to give them the gift of your attention and your time.
That's what I do with I've got a monthly subscription where one time a month I'm present for my family. It's they seem to like it.
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
Yeah, maybe we could get that for the show too. Like maybe we could set up for like next episode.
Yeah,
we'll like cash in a little bit of our Brandon time.
Right. Well, yeah, you'll have to subscribe.
Exactly.
That's good. That's
a new
good.
revenue stream.
Yeah.
Earlier, I thought Mike was laying the groundwork for him to be given an Audible subscription, because we know Mike listens to a lot of books, and I thought there might be some groundwork being laid.
I'm already there, and actually, while we're talking directly to sponsors, like Audible, thank you for all the learning you're giving me, but like make the experience better, because like they kind of got the listening to books market on lockdown, but like the user experience, compared to like the experience like the podcasting apps that I listen to, they're so much better.
Yeah, agreed.
And like, why isn't that? And then the other option you have around books, again, another interesting company that's out there is Blinkist. And there's a bunch of companies like that, which basically give you a short form version of nonfiction books. And in a world where we all don't have a lot of time to spare. I'm in the middle of this book right now called The Beginning of Infinity, and like it's appropriately named. It's like a great book, but I've been at the beginning of Infinity for like 8 hours, and I'm like halfway in.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's a long book. Cut it down and condense it. Like there's an emerging set of books. Again, this is more for the adult set of apps that give you more, just in time, condensed content, similar to like Cliff Notes or for Dummies stuff, but it's sort of the notion that there's so much stuff to stay attuned to. How do I get it fast? And I do feel like an Audible subscription is a great great gift, but I'd say there's probably a little room for disruption against the user experience that Audible's been providing for book listeners. And it is interesting. I would say when you are thinking about a gift for an adult, you probably want to think about how comfortable they are with listening and how much listening time they have. But if many of us do have listening time that we're not tapping into, and that's a really interesting avenue for gift giving, because I think you might be surprised how many people would be more excited about listening to books than they realize. Because I find myself to be in that camp, where like I still read books. And I still do read books with my eyes, but like I find like listening to books to be like a really rewarding and like flexible mode of intake. So I do think like both print books, electronic books, but then also thinking about listenership. If you know somebody already is into podcasts and maybe they haven't really gotten into listening to books, like an Audible subscription, a Blinkist subscription, I think those are thoughtful, and they also you just don't want to give it to someone who's not going to redeem it, So
Right.
like that's the problem with a lot of like even gift certificates, like you want to make sure you're giving it to somebody who's going to have the gumption to redeem it. But yeah.
I have a related gift. So my father's birthday is on November 16th.
Right around now.
It's right around last week. So this is not a spoiler, Dad, because you know what you've gotten. I got him. I guess are they called Airbuds, or was that the movie about the dog?
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Or AirPods?
Yeah, AirPods. Yeah.
Airbuds is the movie about
That's
that.
what I got him. I got him a subscription to Airbud.
Multiple copies
Yes.
of Airbuds.
It's got Airbud of a month, so
Yeah.
every month you get a copy of Airbud. But it's interesting. So I've gotten / had to have the chance to spend a bunch of time with my dad over the past 8 weeks or so, and he does have time for listening, but he didn't have any either Audible, like audiobook apps or podcasts on his phone because it was inaccessible to him.
Yep.
Or he just, I think he was just lazy to.
Yeah.
He's too smart to not be able to figure it out. But
Right.
I do get that for non-digital natives, like that can be a big bridge, a big gulf to bridge.
Right.
And we talked about the gift of time last year during the holiday episode around, especially with if you have aging parents, that actually spending time to download apps that you think that they would like, or in the case of what I've just done with my dad is to put podcasts onto his phone. That was, I think, I hope that becomes a means for him to make this more accessible.
Yep.
And the AirPods, wireless. It doesn't need to be Apple specific. Wireless earphones. That does also open up a form factor for someone who, may not, having wires connected to your phone may present some risk, and not being able to walk away from your phone if you're connected with headphones. I think that's actually, thinking about an enabler for that learning. Like, I think I've basically given my dad the gift of being able to consume media and education in all sorts of new ways.
Right.
My dad is also doing, just a quick shout out for my dad.
Yeah.
He's also doing this thing. He has a name for it that I wish I remember. It's pithy. It's like Fact Finding Fridays or something, where he is now going back one day a week and doing really deep research on something that he used to know.
Right.
So, and I've already forgotten in my fewer years than my dad. Spoiler, my dad is older than me.
Right.
But in my fewer years, there's been so much I've forgotten.
Right.
But I think it's, as an indicator of someone who is really interested in that lifelong learning or relearning, and through means that there was. I think my dad was like Encyclopedia Britannica was like his best source back in the 50s or whatever.
Yeah,
like that's is he now has new means, and hopefully through this gift has even newer means as well.
Yeah, and even just building on that, there are books out there. One book which I mentioned on the show is Factfulness by, I'll get it right, Hans Rosling. I had trouble with that in the past, but it's very much about how what many of us learned in, say, like even the 70s or the 80s about the developing world and the state of affairs around access to clean water, access to technology, access to quote unquote modern amenities. Many of the ideas about the gap between the developed and the developing world, which were true when many of us learned them, are no longer true.
Yeah.
So like it's not even like going back to relearn what was true 20 or 30 years ago. It's also to relearn what is true today.
Right. It doesn't need to be something you've forgotten. It could be something that's changed since you've learned it.
Exactly. Because like there's sort of the notion that like, well, which I think we challenge regularly on the show is like, okay, yeah, once my formal education is done, cool, done. I learned it all. What do you want from me? Now I'm going to be a professional. And it's like, nah, sorry, bro or sis. But like to actually like stay relevant, you need to you need to continue to learn, to relearn, to stay fresh. Yeah, that was awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I before we wrap, I did want to talk about Barbies since I said I was
Please,
going
I
to.
remember there was a tease. Yeah.
So I have a 4-year-old girl. I don't know if that's any more likely because she is a girl, but there's for the first time in my life Barbies in my life.
Oh, yes.
It's not my favorite toy. It's actually, I think, maybe my least favorite toy because they're big.
Yeah.
And they're like hard enough that when you step on them,
Right.
I don't intentionally step on them, but like,
Right.
they come with all sorts of accessories.
Sure.
It's not the best, but Penny loves them.
Oh, she does.
She
Okay.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she has a lot of them. Like I grew up not playing with Barbies, and I always imagined that like you played with Barbie. There was like a singular.
Yeah.
Or like maybe Barbie had like one friend.
Scout? Is it Scout?
That's that's one of her friends.
Ken?
Yeah, that's another friend.
That's all I know.
So like maybe if you were so lucky to have a wall to play with your ball, you also had 3 Barbies, maybe, right?
Yes.
But
right.
there are many Barbies now. So we have all Barbies that look like the people of the world look, which I
Right.
think is great.
Right.
And my daughter plays with them.
Although body
and-
type is still Barbie body type mostly, right?
Correct. So I should say people that look like no people in the world. Yes. But earlier this year, Barbie released a line of Sheros,
Oh.
which I both like and have a hot take on. These are people. These are women leaders and icons. From all sorts of different walks. Frida Kahlo is one of the Barbies that now exist, for example. So I think it is great because I think that having right there in one's hands, like the reminder of super powerful, successful, world-changing women is great.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish it was called a line of heroes.
Yes. Yes.
Although maybe that there is an empowering part by taking the he and turning it into a she. So like this, maybe I'm outside of my ken, so to
Sure.
speak.
Oh, I like what you did there.
But I think that what you call a woman doctor.
A doctor.
That's right. And what you call a woman hero is a hero.
Right.
So anyway, I maybe my hot take may be uninformed, but
but you landed it with the outside of your
thank
tent.
you,
I mean,
yeah.
that
I
was
should have
a
ended there.
Nice recovery.
So those are certainly going to be on our list for Penny for the holiday season this year.
Right.
And I hope that I don't step too hard on Frida at some point in some night. But looking forward to having more role models. We have I talked about the book of stories, the 100 Rebel Women book that I mentioned last holiday year.
Yep.
Holiday episode. More stories however your child identifies.
Mm-hmm.
If you can help your child see people who look like your child or who seem like your child, I think as the successes that they have been, I think that's great for anyone. Like personal identity, forming a strong personal identity, having confidence, all of that's really important. So if you can do something for your child that gives your child that, I think that'd be my best recommendation for the holiday season.
And I think that's a great recommendation. And I think it's also interesting to think about it as a cross category too. Like, so for boys, where should boys be exposed to women heroes?
Yep.
And where should boys be exposed to new model, like next gen male role models? I think is a really interesting idea. And like, even like, how do you talk about role models around, movements that maybe are not even relevant to the primary identity of your child is a really interesting thing. I thought Rohit, when we had him on the show, I thought that was interesting when he was talking about how a lot of the movements lately have been focused either on femininity and fierce femininity and helping women sort of, come into the fullness of who they are. And then also the ungenderedness, like moving away from stereotypically gendered one way or another, and how that then is leading to like like a new set of challenges for how do you raise a boy, and how do you talk about what it is for a boy to understand both female heroes and female role models, but also male ones, and like how do we sort of land in like a healthy place about that. I think it's all really interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I think great discussion. Brandon, I had not seen the Barbie line as of yet. We are not a Barbie household per se. We have some. We are more on the Lego side of the fence when it comes to the toy of choice for my children. And my middle child really loves baby dolls. So she has a wide collection of them, but I think this might be the step up from there that we might take this winter around the holidays. So I appreciate the point out there. We'll see if what purchases we make over the next few weeks before the holidays do set in. Any final thoughts here? You both honestly had really in-depth ones just now, but wanted to give you an opportunity, Mike or Brandon, to sort of sum up the gift-giving season or a holiday gift or whatever might be finally on your mind here before we go. Mike, maybe you first. Any final thoughts here on the gift-giving episode?
Yeah, I think it's a theme that we talk to a lot on the show, which is blending like learning and fun, and how like those distinctions, which they were, for whatever reason, I think they were positioned as like tensions or opposites, where like, do you want to have fun or do you want to learn? Okay, if you want to learn, it's going to be boring and it's going to be hard, and there's some truth to that. But I think the idea of learning through play and the idea of thinking about toys that are educational, learning oriented, and gifts that are learning oriented, it is a very hopeful and personal gift to someone to say, like, I believe in your future potential. I wouldn't argue. You probably don't want to say that out loud that's a little corny. But when you give someone a gift that is sort of about how they can be a better person, frequently thinking about gifting from a learning perspective, I think is really good. And I think the idea that you can have fun while you learn, and it's sort of that idea of stealth learning, which I know, Brandon, you brought back from South by Southwest EDU. I think that's the same idea around toys and games. So like frequently, you can learn a lot without being told that you're learning. And I think games and gifts are really a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say think about giving a gift to yourself this holiday season as well. We're in the trending and education space, and so whether that's on the trending side or the education space or the both. In fact, what you could do is you could go and do some, if you're a recent subscriber to the podcast, you could go and listen to some of the back catalog.
Yes.
But in all seriousness, like, do that, but also just give some space, I think, at the end of the year. If you're on a calendar that runs January to December, we're supportive of all calendaring types here, but
12 month,
right,
13
exactly,
months,
lunar, solar,
yeah, all those.
But if you're on a calendar that ends in December, I think this is always a good time to sort of take stock and build some new habits, and things around mindfulness and thinking about how you're incorporating learning into your life and the life of your loved ones. I think this is a good time to do it. So some of those may be purchases from Amazon.com, and some of those may be just how you choose to spend the most important resource, probably, which is the time we got. So have a happy. I think we will not be in your learn holes again until after Thanksgiving.
That's
so
right.
To all of our listeners,
right.
Have a very happy Thanksgiving, those of you who celebrate. And I guess Dan will probably say another thing here after I wrap, but I will not say another thing until next week.
And don't forget, you can get details on your subscription to Brandon Jones sometime in the near future. We'll make sure that everybody has an opportunity to. I'm kidding, of course, but a great episode discussing a holiday gift giving for lifelong learners and kids, a mix between the two, and I think a good discussion around the whys and hows of the gift giving around learning and education. As always, gift to us would be subscribing on iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, or any app that you do listen on, or following us on Twitter or on Facebook to interact with the podcast along the way. Appreciate everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll be back with you next week with a new Trending in Education.